Yeah, but I'm going to say this. I think the Atlanta community is particularly toxic.
Yes,
the Atlanta South Asian
amen to that.
community is
Yeah,
particularly
100%.
toxic.
Oh my
Because there
God.
are. Hold on.
Please don't
No,
start.
no. That's what I'm saying.
If it's going to be something that's going to, like, really
No.
infuriate me, I
Because
need you to
no.
stop. But I think that's what we're taught, though. To
Right,
keep
but
on
that's
ignoring.
what we're taught is not necessarily what we should teach. Don't go to chemo. Trust in God's will.
Welcome back to another episode of Moments of
Solace. Why did you just pass it off to me like we're doing a duet?
Because it's cute.
Moments of
Solace.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my God, we're so out of it. It's been like quite a few weeks for us. And we also haven't been able to really like shoot our podcast like we used to.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what we look like after hours. I think this might just be how we shoot our podcast. Like there's.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm okay with that.
I'm good.
I have my skincare done already, so after we're done with this, I am
straight to bed.
Yeah.
Lucky
I brushed
you.
my teeth also, but now I'm thinking like I'm having tea. Do I have to brush my teeth again? or no?
Probably. At least rinse it.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So today's format, I think we said we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to sort of do a couple, I don't know if it's going to be rapid fire, but, hit a couple different topics.
Yeah.
Because I think you opened a poll or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
so I had opened a poll on Instagram. I, just asked what were some of the topics you wanted us to cover, and just kind of, there were just a lot of things that we got, and there was a few that stood out for us, and I think we can just kind of, touch those and go from there. I mean, if it goes into, a whole episode of just talking about that one thing, then sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, go for it. You know the topics, not me.
Well, I just told you.
I don't remember them. I don't generally listen very good. So
amen to that. Okay, so there's one that really stood out to me, and that was raising girls in South Asian culture, and how to protect your kids.
Yeah.
And
protect them from what?
The toxicness of the entire community. I mean, look, there's before I get into it, I just want to say, while we talk about, so far we've talked about things that people don't talk about, right? These are your hard conversations, and they aren't pleasant ones, right? These hard conversations are never pleasant. But I do love our community. I think we have so much to offer. I love our culture. I love how, tight-knit our community can be, and the village that they provide you when you need something, right?
Yep.
But I'd be lying if I say that that's all that they offer, right? There's a lot of toxic
tendencies. I mean, but that's sort of why I asked protect them from what, right? Because
protect
I think
them from people labeling them.
But that happens in every community.
Yeah, it does. But I think because we're South Asian, I think it's just easier to talk about our own versus a general thing. But fine, we won't even talk about it from the South Asian lens. We can just talk about it as a general format. Yeah. But, for instance, when girls are growing up, there's a lot of eyes that are watching their every step, right? What they're wearing, what they're studying, who they're talking to, what they look like. Are they dating? Are they not dating? If they're dating, how many guys they've dated? Are they going to be in good careers? There's just so many things that everybody looks at when girls are growing up.
Yep.
And I think it just creates this toxic environment for girls to grow up in, because they feel like they're constantly being held on a pedestal.
Yep.
And I don't want that for our girls. While I can't fully protect them from all of it,
yep.
I'm not going to be the one that promotes that behavior or enables that behavior from other people around them.
That's very hard. Yes.
Because we just made it, John. So yeah, I wouldn't want them to go to school and be shamed for talking to boys in class.
Yeah.
Or even having guys in their group. That happens. People, you're thinking, but you're not.
No, I'm listening,
You're-
but I'm also thinking about what.
But so the thing is going to be that I'm going to be very biased because one, I'm a woman, and I've been given these labels, right? That you are, there were not nice labels
Yep.
to be given.
Yeah.
And I remember that like once I got out of the community that we were in, I was like, I'm never going back.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say this. I think the Atlanta community is particularly toxic. The
Yes,
Atlanta South
amen
Asian
to that,
community is
yeah,
particularly
100%.
toxic.
And I've look, we've lived in a few different places, and I would say that out of all, Atlanta is special with their community. They are vicious, to say the least.
But so we're gonna do like rapid fire. We're at like 6 minutes into the one topic. But what I'll say is like I've had a couple cousins who sort of were outside the norm of the right. I told you. Feels like it should be cooler by now. But I've had a couple cousins who were outside of the norms of what you would consider to be like, a stereotypical South Asian, whatever, girl, right? And I found that people said a lot of things about them. But as long as their parents sort of protected them, it didn't matter. And that's something that I wanted for our kids, right? Like we have two girls. So we'll do it for our girls, but like if we had a son and a daughter or two sons or whatever, like it would have been the same, right? Like I want our children to know that as long as they're doing right by us, I really don't care what the community or anybody else has to say. And they should feel the same way. Like I want to raise our kids to be confident in themselves.
But I'm going to say this, while some people are like that, there's a lot of parents that are going to be like protective of their kids and make sure that they are not treated that way. And there's a lot of kids that do right by their parents, right? But the community does not let them live, regardless.
Yeah, but that's
so
where the parents
it's like,
have to...
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it all really comes down to, again, you said it yourself, like I think it really comes down to like kids doing right by their parents, and then us teaching them how to be good kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's a lot that I can say, but it would take the entire episode because it's just like...
Yeah, but to me, I think it's really just like, as long as our kids are doing right by us, and obviously, even if they're not doing right by us, if we have issues with our children, like obviously that's something for us to address with them. It has nothing to do with the public. It has nothing to do really with the community unless they're harming the community. Excuse me.
And I think one thing that I really do want to instill in the girls is going to be that, like, if they ever feel uncomfortable by the things that people are saying, not to hold it in and be able to feel comfortable to tell their parents.
Yeah.
Like, I would want the girls to come to me and be like, hey, Mom, like, this is what happened and this is what is being said about me.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing, but like I wanted you to know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be like I know that like I would want that from the girls, and I hope that I can be the mother that they want me to be able to listen to them, to trust them. I want to be what they need me to be. And that's something that I want to work on, and I hope that I am that, so I can protect them in the best ways possible.
Yep.
Anyways, so yeah. I'm going to get teary-eyed because I could go on forever. People should not send me poll answers, suggestions.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't have much more to say on that topic besides that. Okay. Just because to me, it's really a matter of like protecting our daughters, our kids, in general, to me is really a matter of just us.
Yeah.
And doing everything we can to raise them to be confident and to be confident that we'll always be there for them, right? No matter how badly they mess up. Yeah, of course, there's consequences, right? But we're not going to abandon them.
Yes.
And to me, that's it, right? I don't care what the community is. I don't care boy, girl, gender nonconforming, whatever it is, right? Like, that's it. To me, it's those are the factors. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance into it, but like, yeah.
Okay, so since we're already on the topic of like raising girls and toxic thing, there's another one that stood out the most.
Okay.
There's another one that stood out, and that was body shaming in children. For God's sake, please stop. If you're watching this and if you have taken part in shaming little kids,
Yeah.
you should probably.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this one, though. I'm gonna play devil's advocate on this one, right? To a degree.
Oh
because
my God.
there are.
Hold on. Please don't start.
No. That's what I'm saying.
If it's going to be something that's going to like really infuriate me, I need you to stop.
So there's body shaming, right? Which is, I think, like what is like you calling the kid fat or you're calling the kid too skinny or whatever, right? Like that's that, right? Whereas like sort of blatant. But I think there's a lot of things that are small things that are not essentially necessarily meant to be mean to the child or even meant to like.
Okay, so like what would you consider not mean to the child? Because it's not as simple as fat or skinny.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Is that like there's a lot of things where somebody's like, you know, oh, like, you know, make sure that your kid's eating so that they can be healthy, right? Or I can't think of things like offhand right now, right? But like there's a lot of things that people say sort of in passing or with the best of intentions that are not necessarily like, hey, your kid's fat. Or hey kid, you're fat, which happens a lot. Yes, that happens a lot.
Yes, but I don't think this particular like person was really saying like, oh, you know.
No, I know
somebody in passing said like,
person.
oh, you know, we want your child to be healthy, make sure they're eating their meals. Like,
but I know it's not about that person, right? But I think the reason I'm saying is that like there's a lot of people who will take anything and everything, right, and be like, well, like you can't say that.
Okay, so I'm gonna narrow it down to like the specifics of body shaming in kids, right? It'll be, you know, esto complicado, like feed it this person, like this kid less so they don't get fat. Mm-hmm. Or that this person is too skinny, feed them a burger. Yep. You know. Or they're too tan.
Yeah.
Or they're like too white. Like those are all considered body shaming to me. There's there's colorism and then there's also like body shaming. And I don't think that's appropriate at all.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There's blatant body shaming, right? Mm-hmm. Which is everything that you sort of just highlighted. But I think there's a lot of things that people will consider that do make you self-conscious as a person, right? Like, again, I was a really skinny kid, right? A lot of people made a lot of comments about how skinny I was. And that has played a lot into my psyche, you know, growing up. But a lot of people said a lot of things that, like, I look back at it, and again, I'm not going to be able to think of anything right now, but I look back at it, I'm like, oh, like, that stuck with me for sure. That wasn't their intention. You know? And I say that only to say that I think people need to be a bit more mindful about, like,
the words
the world. The world exists, mm-hmm. right? Not everybody's out there to be a bad person. Not everybody's out there as being sip your tea. But like, look, I think that's the reality, right? The world exists. The world doesn't bend to your child or to you as an individual, right? Protect your child to the degree that you can, but also help your child to be able to grow up in a world that sometimes says things that aren't necessarily nice or that may come off as hurtful, right? Because if it's everything is the world's fault, then your child never learns to take care of themselves. They never grow that thick skin. And thick skin's important, right?
Yes and no. I think thick skin is absolutely important, but I think there needs to be boundaries drawn in that. Because bullies that body shame like this will forever body shame people.
Yeah.
But
you can't. Bullies won't ever not exist.
Yes, I'm getting there. Like
get there faster.
So bullies are not going to stop bullying, and you know they're not just going to vanish from the face of the earth, mm-hmm. right? But the impact of their words are going to be long lasting. So while I can teach my child to be brave and to be confident and to have a thick skin, it does take a toll mm-hmm. on kids. Yeah. And I can say that because I've been the victim of that. I've been the victim of bullying and skinny shaming, right? when I was growing up, like the amount of times people were like, oh, eat a burger, or you're too skinny. And there are some people in your family who've made comments about that as well. Right? So it's like, oh, you're too skinny, or you're going to fly away, and things like that. And while like it's considered like, oh, we're joking, don't take it to heart, it still takes a toll on somebody's, you know. It wasn't until after I had the kids where I actually started enjoying my body, or like being okay with my arms. I had body dysmorphia. I didn't like my arms, and I didn't like certain parts of my body because people always made comments about that. So while I've become more confident, I subconsciously still think about those things. And so, you know, while like, I don't know if you're following, if you're following, or you're just like,
No, I'm following.
you know, so while like I can tell my child to not pay those people mind,
I don't think it's about telling them not to pay them mind.
but I think that's what we're taught though. To
Right,
keep
but
on
that's
ignoring.
what we're taught is not necessarily what we should teach,
Yeah.
or that what we want to teach. What I'm just saying is that like our children, we want to train our children to go out into the world, and the world is a tough place.
Yes.
We want to prepare them for that, right? So running around and constantly being like, oh, well, that person shouldn't say this shouldn't say this. Sure, do that, right? I want the world to be as nice of a place as possible when our girls go out into it. But I also know that that's not real.
But I think parents should be able to protect their kids to a certain extent. You
Yeah,
can't
to a
just,
certain extent.
yes. And I think like, I mean, from what you're saying, it seems like you're saying like just throw them to the wolves, you know, and I don't believe in that. I think you can still like, you can teach them, you know, to be confident and to be tough and to take what life throws at them. But I don't think it's appropriate for you to be like, off you go to the wolves, you know, and let them just rip them apart.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the alternative? Not throwing to, and again, I'm not saying to throw them to the wolves, right? I don't know how you got that, because I've said that you should stop people. No, but I'm saying I've said that you should stop people, right? But like at the end of the day, you're going to send your kid to school where you have no control.
Yeah.
In that school, there will be people who are going through tough times who take that out on kids.
Yes,
right?
but them being
What are
that
you
way
going to
is
do
not
about
my
that?
child's responsibility
But what are you going to do about it?
I would 100% go to school. I will be 100%
And then
that
do
mom.
what?
And talk to the kids' parents, or get the...
Most bullies already have a bad home life. That's generally why they're bullies. You think talking to their parents is going to make their home life better?
Yes, but there's... Look, this isn't about like me helping the bullies. You know, this is about me protecting my child. And if that means I need to be in that school to raise like ruckus, to go to war for my kids, I will.
Okay.
And I know that you and I operate differently on that, because you believe and you give bullies the benefit of the doubt. And
I don't give them the benefit of the doubt. I trust my child to be able to handle themselves.
Next question.
Look, I think it's the same, like, away from bullies for a second, right? Like, I just think, like, I look at it like, years ago, I remember, like, this football coach got in trouble because the kid was late to practice, and he made the kid run laps. And then the coach got in trouble. And I was just like, hold on, what? Like, that was so normal for us. It's like,
Yes, but that's like, that seems irrelevant to this conversation.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, now the whole world is just mad at everybody for what they're, for like not bending to their child. That coach has a team to run.
I think you're just thinking about bullying being like, oh, somebody was mean, and then you know, like somebody threw our child threw a fit.
What? Where did throw a fit come from?
Like, the way you're saying things right now.
I'm not. The child didn't throw a
of,
fit because of the coach. The child.
John,
the
I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the example you just gave. I'm saying the example you're giving, and the things that you're saying, the choice of words that you're using, indicate or are making me feel like I don't even know why I think we're starting a fight here.
No, I'm curious. How am I indicating that a child should throw a fit or will throw a fit or whatever?
You saying that now everybody's just mad about everything. I agree with that.
Uh-huh.
I 100% agree with that. But we're not talking about that. We're talking strictly about bullies who need to be given some hard lessons.
But that's, again, I started this off with there's bullies, and then there's people who say things that you might not like.
Yes, but I don't want to talk about things that just like, bully said something awful and our child cried about it. I'm talking about if somebody was ridiculously mean, calling them names constantly, hitting them, or doing reckless things. That won't, like, using your nice words and, going in and just being like, oh, it's okay, John. Like, it's okay. Just deal with it. Is not like.
What of those things is taking care of yourself?
Okay. We're going to have to cut this part out. Like, I don't think you're understanding it.
No, but it's not that I'm not understanding. You're completely misstating what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right? Because you're saying that, like, going and using nice words. When Elise talks now about, like, a kid said something to me, I'm not like, oh, no, baby, it's okay. Just take a deep breath and walk away. I'm like, okay, next time they try to do something, you tell them to back off. If they don't back off, you can use your hands and you can move their hands away. Right? Now, I can't be there when a kid in her school pulls her dress. So the best I can do is be like, this is how you make sure somebody doesn't pull your dress. Now, when that happens, of course, we go in, we talk to the teachers, and like, hey, Elise said that this kid's pulling on her dress. Is that actually happening? Can you make sure that doesn't happen? That does still happen, right? It's not like we're just like, well, go punch him in the face and hopefully you win, right? But I do think there's a balanced approach, and I think there's a lot of people, again, like those kids, right? They're 3 years old. They have, or two to 3, somewhere in that range. Right? They're not there ill-intentioned, right? They're just little kids doing little kid things. So I'm more talking about, I'm 100% on board with the fact, like, if you're being a mean person, I'm trying not to have to edit it out. If you're being a mean person, right? Like, you're intentionally a mean person, I think that's terrible. And I think everybody should go out of their way to make mean people stop being mean, right? But I think there's a lot of people, particularly this day and age, who look at people who are just being and like, but like what you just said inconvenienced me, and that's rude. And that is what I'm sort of talking about, is like that there is a aspect of it where, like, there are things about your body, about whatever, that people will say or do, right? That will strike a chord for you, right? Sometimes it's just that, like, somebody just made a joke about you being skinny, and then now you're walking down the street and somebody says, oh wow, like, I wish I could be a size 0, right? Which has happened, and you got upset because you're like, and it's like, well, that person was saying something completely different, but it struck a nerve because of this, right? Now that person isn't a bad person, right? But you very, very quickly, understood where you were on that. But, like, there are people who don't, who come down from that, like, that person's such a jerk. Like, why would they assume that I'm a 0? Like, they don't understand where I'm at. Like, so I'm just saying, like, there needs to be a balance of, like, yes, mean people, don't be mean. Let's call them out. But also recognize that the world does still exist outside of our own bubbles.
Sure, but then I'm going to go back to the original statement, and that is about, like, body shaming in children. Yes. Now that you've talked about everything else, that, yes, which happens to be the case every single podcast. Mm-hmm. Go on a tangent about what the real thing.
But I did end on somebody talking.
But no, I look. You cannot, like, I don't know if, like, you agree with me completely, but I think that people just really need to think about their words a little bit more carefully when it comes to children. And when you're constantly you're pointing out things, like, oh, their birthmark is ugly, or, like, it's too dark. Why is their birthmark so big? or the placement of this birthmark is like not good, you know, or you know they're too big, they're too small, and that happens a lot when the kids are growing, especially when they're like babies.
Yep.
You know, there's like some sort of like this competition about their weight. It's like everybody's just like watching to see the babies putting on weight. You know, and I think that's inappropriate. I think, you know, yes, I appreciate the concern that you may have for certain kids. Like, we'll hear how, like, grandparents say things like that, or, you know, friends will, like, just say out of concern, like, oh, you know, is the baby doing okay? Like, you know, or, like, when people say, like, oh, they're so tiny, or they're too small. Like, that's different than constantly talking about their weight gain or what they look like. And, I think that's what this person was probably talking about, and that's what I was talking about, and that is like it shouldn't happen, and people just need to do a little better job at like saying these things to kids, because it does take a toll on them.
Okay.
I feel like we're gonna have to cut this whole thing out.
Why?
Because nearly going. Okay. Has there been like topics that you've gotten?
I didn't open a poll, so no.
Okay.
You know, one of the ones actually you said when you were reading about contraception. That one, I don't know. All you said was contraception, so I don't know the context. If they're like people asked from
No, literally, like they were
just
just like
contraception.
use of contraception or just the word contraception.
Yeah, I mean, I think whether or not you use it obviously is a very personal choice. And why you may or may not use it again is a very, very personal choice. I do wish that a lot more people understood that contraception can be used for a lot more than just birth control, right? Like there's a lot of hormonal imbalances and God knows what else, like things that I do not understand because I'm not a doctor.
And
PCOS, like all these things. Like, of course, I'm not a doctor. So many things probably. But these things help that, right? They help women to be able to live more normal lives. Obviously, there's a lot of side effects. Caveat. But I do think I wish more people knew that. And then on the other side, I want people to have the same energy about contraception that they do about any other medication, right? Yeah. Which is that, like all these people are like, oh, like you just have to trust in God's will. So, all right then, don't take antibiotics. Don't take Tylenol. Don't go to chemo. Trust in God's will. Don't wear the seatbelt.
I think the conversation on contraceptive needs to start at home. If people need to like be educated about it, if people need to talk about it, and people need to know about it, it needs to start at home. I think a lot of families don't even talk about or mention the word contraceptive because it immediately means that this person is sexually active and therefore they're thinking about using a contraceptive. In most cases, contraceptive is used for irregular periods. It's used for, I mean, you're aware of some. I'm sure other people know as well. We can also just like give you a resource to look at. But contraceptive is used for a lot of things. It's not just for birth control. But that conversation is never normalized in a household.
Yeah.
Like mothers should be able to take their kids to OBGYNs and have transparent conversations. But there's too many women and too many girls that just take whatever contraceptive is given to them without any research. And then they get into this like vicious cycle of that contraceptive wasn't working for them. Now their reproductive health is crap, you know, and they have nowhere to turn. So while there's a lot of information available for contraception, there isn't enough valuable information available. And I think that's something should be normalized, and it should be shared with spouses as well, like partners. I think those are important conversations to have and to be, you know, made well aware of. And I think, again, like there's a lot of contraceptives that are given to women of color that really screw them up.
Yep.
And there's a lot of statistics around that. This isn't just like pulled out of thin air. This is actually, there's a lot of studies done on it, and there's a lot of statistics that are available like for you to look at. I wouldn't want that for my kid, you know? And I think like people are afraid to have that conversation or even admit that they're on contraceptive because the labels that are given to women who take contraceptive. Yeah. But why? You know, people jump to an assumption that this person is, you know, God knows what. Like, you know, like this person's not working the streets. Or even if there were, what is it to you?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, there's a lot of people that have a lot to say about a women's reproductive system. We can go on about this. But if you want there to be transparency, you want the kids to know or the future generation to know about the side effects, what these medication can do to you. If you want to have the same kind of energy that you do for all the other medication, you need to have those conversations at home. That's my take on that.
Yeah.
Wow, I've never been so passionate about things before.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I do agree that obviously where possible, have the conversation at home. Yeah. But of course, there's a lot of homes that can't have the conversation or won't have the conversation, right? So I would sort of just add to that. Like if you're in a place, and I will say this on here because if you're watching and you found yourself in a place where you think that you don't have anybody to talk to about contraceptives, or that you're thinking about taking it but you just don't have a safe space, you know, I hope that you do find that safe space. So what I was just adding there was like, you know, even if you can't have the conversation at home, maybe your home environment is not conducive to that, or whatever the reason may be, right? Like I do encourage people to do their own research, to talk to whatever doctors that they can, and come to the conclusion that's right for you. Don't let your home environment shame you into not getting the health care that you need, right? Yeah. Because contraceptives, quite frankly, again, are health care. There's multiple reasons for it.
Yes, absolutely. Alrighties.
Yeah. So,
I think those are
so much for rapid fire.
Well, I mean,
I think this is the first one that we've disagreed on, though.
Yeah.
On the first episode that we've had a disagreement.
I mean, this just tells you guys that we don't always agree on things, and then sometimes I have to bite my tongue because I can bite this man, and then I don't want to bite this man.
Same.
Anyways, this just makes it on YouTube in all its entirety. Yay! If not, then also yay. Yeah, I think we'll do like these episodes like every once in a while to kind of like talk about things that people talk about, you know, want us to talk about, and I think it's a good way to kind of like spark some more debate and conversation.
For sure.
But if you haven't watched our last episodes, please do, and make sure you subscribe to our channel because that's how you can stay updated, and it helps us, and we want to keep on making these
notifications and alerts.
Yes. And we want to keep on making these for you guys. And so, yeah.
They're cathartic for us.
Yeah.
But also for you guys.